Students, welcome back to Asian history. Today, we're going to be looking at hieroglyphs as a part of Egypt's ancient writing system. So without further ado, let's get to the assignment in Canvas called hieroglyphics. And we're still ballparking it around 3100 BC. So again, about 5,000 years ago, just to get us into the right time frame for when we're talking about. So here are our plans for today. Highlighted text indicates that you need to write and submit information to this assignment. Ensure you've completed all requirements in the what to submit section near the bottom, and participation will be rewarded for participating in class discussion if we do this lesson together. So let's take a look at these images as a class. Just take a few seconds by yourself to take in what you're seeing. So on the side, we have three ancient civilizations: Mesopotamia, which we've talked about, Egypt, which we're talking about now, and then China, which we'll get to soon. And then for these interpretations of language above, we have the English, up here, modern English, to describe what we're seeing here. And then we have the different symbols associated with the different subregions of those ancient empires. So Mesopotamia, the fish, the symbol for fish kind of looked like a fish. Same with bird, kind of similar with axe, definitely with arrow, bottle. And we see this become increasingly ornamental or increasingly descriptive or vivid, or just what looks exactly like what it is, as we go through these different empires, right? This is amazing to see. This blows my mind thinking about how they really communicated language with one another. In Egypt, we have a fish really looking like a fish, still looking like a fish, kind of looking like a fish down here. Bird, same here, right? Axe, arrow, and then bottle here. And at the top, we see the most ornamental, or the most accurate, or really look like what it is. And then in China, same thing, with just a completely different flair on it, right? So the drawings themselves just have a different artist style to them, which is just, I think it's just cool to see these different ways that they go about drawing these things, and how these pictures essentially derive from what we see in the real world, right? And how we actually make little marks based on our English language, similar to how these things are supposed to look. So it's all from taking an image, trying to put that image into some sort of codified way, and then again, drawing meaning out of that code. Fascinating stuff. And these three ancient cultures did it in similar ways. Just cool to think about. So here's some context for how we're thinking about too, and I love this image as well. So cuneiform, when we were talking in ancient Mesopotamia, then we have hieroglyphs, which come about 1,000 years later. The Latin alphabet, so if you're taking more Western civilization history, this is whenever our modern languages really begin to emerge. And then finally, we're going back to pictures, right? We're going back to pictures, emojis, emoticons, whatever. This is like how humans work. This is the essence of what we do to codify our meaning, or what we mean whenever we are interacting with others. So cuneiform, the most basic kind of writing in clay, getting slightly more ornamental with hieroglyphs, becoming more codified or harder to read with the Latin alphabet. And then finally, going back to the images. It's awesome. I think it's awesome. Step 2, you're going to watch this video. And this person who narrates this is kind of cheesy, so sorry about that, but I want you to answer this prompt while you watch the video. Identify 2 ways that hieroglyphs are similar to modern language, and 2 ways hieroglyphs are different from our modern language. And that'll be 20 points. You can even use these pictures up here, and I think, in fact, they will help you answer those questions as well. This is about 4 minutes long, so we'll watch some of it together.
How did Egyptian hieroglyphs give birth to the alphabet?
Even in these ancient times, Egyptian monuments have been sitting and weathering for thousands of years. On their great murals and pillars, you find rows of little pictures. Sorry, not pictures, hieroglyphs, sacred symbols. But despite appearances, this isn't some mysterious pharaonic picture writing. It's consonants. 1 consonant signs, 2 consonant signs, 3 consonant signs, a wall of consonants, plus a sprinkle of logographs for determinatives. It's not that Egyptian was a harsh, vowelless desert of a tongue. It simply did not write its vowels. Imagine if you wrote this way. Would that work? And then imagine if you could add in
That's cool. Have you ever seen that thought experiment before? Writing without the actual vowels? Vowels smooth out our language, but they're probably not necessary for us to process what we're seeing. This is kind of like a similarity or difference between, or probably a difference between Egyptian language and ours. It's about the consonants.
logographs to make sure you really got your point across. Imagine you wrote like that and you're thinking with hieroglyphs. Too difficult? Fine. Off to the caves with you, where you toil away with ancient miners on the Sinai Peninsula. You and your fellow miners would find it handy to leave messages for one another, but there's no time for deep studies of rows of fancy hieroglyphs in here. You need to keep it simple if you want another major moments in the history of writing. Your characters look like scratchy, rushed version of those glamorous Egyptian symbols, but their meaning doesn't matter anymore. Nothing but consonants, and the same symbol for the same consonant every time. Take this character. In Egyptian, it means house. These Semitic miners are calling a house a bet. Acrophony, or top sounds, suggests that you can just take the first letter of a word, like the Egyptians had already been doing with much of their consonant writing. You end up with a letter for your sound, b. Do the same thing with water, which the Semitic speakers are calling mem, and you now have an sound. With a couple dozen elegant simplifications, you create a simple, reliable list of consonants, an alphabet, and you've given generations of future children the joys of reciting their ABCs. Actually, at this point in history, they're ABGDs, sometimes called an abjad or abgad, because who needs that wishy-washy C when you can just use an S or a K? After a long, hard day of mining and etching, you turn to find that someone's been watching you this whole time. She's a traitor, a Phoenician merchant who knows a good thing when she sees it. She's already made major cash in the paper business, where they turn tufty, stocky, swampy Egyptian papyrus into flat, inkable sheets of paper.
Papyrus, plant, paper, right?
She rushes back home to Phoenicia and smirks. Think of the advantage she has, keeping track of whatever anyone else tells her just by remembering about as many characters as she has fingers and toes. Old.
And she's responding to the incentive in front of her. This isn't economics, but she's responding to the incentives around her, right? Knowing this language gives her an advantage, so she's willing to take that advantage if it means making some money.
Kings can keep their obtuse hieroglyphs and their stone monuments. The future of the Mediterranean will belong to alphabets and paper. Writing is going portable. She uses this newfound alphabetic leverage to turn a huge profit across the entire Eastern Mediterranean, leaving people inspired to adopt and adapt her alphabet wherever she goes. All this, and she doesn't even write you a thank you card? How hard could it be? Writing is easier than ever. It feels universal, like writing's here to stay, for everyone. But there's a peculiar quirk that's easier to spot in hindsight. You and your mining crew were communicating in a Semitic language. Phoenician's a Semitic language. All of these friendly shades of the Phoenician alphabet were being used for languages that sounded similar and worked much the same way. Even Egyptian, though no Semitic language itself, is at least a distant relative of the Semitic languages with a similar personality. This consonant alphabet is being tested in easy waters. But history's shaking things up. Your merchant friend comes back for your help. She needs you to deliver your alphabet to a very different people living along her trade route. What will happen when the alphabet gets leaked outside of the family?
Cool. So think of the social consequences of having a written language, how that affects certain people, and can be used as a way to manipulate others. I don't know. Manipulate, add some level of inequity between them, and how different people might not understand language in the same way, and how some things need to be taught and they can't just be learned by themselves. So identify the two ways hieroglyphs are similar to our modern language and two ways they are different. And then step 3, you're going to go to this hieroglyphic typewriter. All you have to do is write your name out, take a picture, and submit it to this assignment. Pretty cool, right? Remember, it's not so much about the vowels as it is the consonants for them. Cool, and that's all you'd have to do. 10 easy points on that part of the assignment. And what you submit is your response to the prompt in step 2 and your hieroglyphic name. And with that, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.